Today we're diving deep into the Great Pyramids of Giza. And we're going to skip right past the usual stuff because we're looking at a series of absolutely mind-blowing mathematical codes that are apparently hidden right in their design. We're talking about codes that seem to connect these ancient stones to the speed of light, the layout of our solar system, and maybe even a specific date in our future. You know the story, right? We're all taught in school that these were just massive, elaborate tombs for the pharaohs. But what if that's not the whole story? What if that's just the surface level? And the real purpose wasn't about looking to the past, but was built as a message for the future, a kind of cosmic clock, just waiting for us to figure it out. You know, the mystery really starts with just how they were built. I mean, look at this. We find these perfectly smooth, perfectly round holes drilled into rose granite. This stuff is one of the hardest stones on the planet, and mainstream history tells us that the tools the Egyptians had just weren't capable of doing this. But honestly, this physical puzzle, it's nothing compared to the mathematical one. All right, so before we get to the really wild stuff, let's just quickly cover some of the basics. These are the puzzles that people have known about for a long time, things that already hint at a level of knowledge that just seems way ahead of its time. So you've got the three main pyramids on the plateau. But right away, something's odd. They aren't in a perfectly straight line. The smallest one, Mykerinos, is just slightly offset. On top of that, they're all aligned to true north with a precision that is just baffling without modern tools. And the entire complex just happens to sit exactly on the line of 30 degrees north latitude. Now look, any one of these things could be a coincidence, but they're just the warm-up act. And now we get to the heart of it. A German physicist named Dr. Hans Jelitto apparently uncovered a set of equations that link the dimensions of these pyramids to some of the fundamental constants of our solar system. And this is where your jaw might hit the floor. Let's start with the big one, the Great Pyramid of Cheops. The very first equation suggests that its foundation, its actual physical size, is encoded with one of the most important numbers in all of physics. Yeah, the speed of light. Okay, so look at the math here. You take the baseline length of the Cheops pyramid, then you multiply it by the ratio of the sun's volume to the Earth's volume, and the number you get is a 99.99% match for the actual speed of light. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. A physical measurement of a pyramid, combined with a planetary ratio, gives you a fundamental constant of the universe. How? And I know what you might be thinking. Oh, you can make numbers say anything if you try hard enough. But that's the key here. The research is very clear on this. There are no adjustment factors, no weird constants thrown in to make it work. You just take the pyramid's measurement, you multiply it by the planetary ratio, and boom, there it is. It's just pure numbers. So if the huge Cheops pyramid is tied to Earth and the speed of light, what about the others? Well, the next equation suggests the pyramids are literally physical models of the planets, and their relative sizes encode another cosmic secret. Check this out. If you take the volume of the Cheops pyramid and you divide it by the volume of the second biggest pyramid, Chefren, you get a ratio of 1.168. Okay, pretty simple. Now, let's do the same thing with planets. Take the volume of Earth and divide it by the volume of Venus. The ratio is 1.167. It is a 99.9% match. It's like they built a scale model. Cheops represents Earth and Chefren represents Venus. All right, so we've got Earth and Venus covered. What about that little offset pyramid, Mykerinos? Well, this third equation might be the most mind-bending of all. It connects its size not to another planet's volume, but to the actual orbital path of the planet closest to the sun, Mercury. This is just wild. So you take the baseline of the smallest pyramid, Mykerinos, and divide it by the baseline of the biggest, Cheops. You get the number, 0.458. Okay, now let's go to space. Compare Mercury's farthest point from the sun with Earth's. That ratio, 0.459. But here's the absolute kicker. The ancient Egyptian unit of measurement, the cubit, is about 0.457 meters. You have three totally separate concepts: pyramid sizes, planetary orbits, and an ancient unit of measurement, and they are all converging on the exact same number. How is that possible? So these equations are incredible, but the evidence doesn't stop with the math. No, the physical layout of the pyramids on the ground, it seems to be a direct mirror of a very specific and very rare alignment of the planets up in the sky. Hey, remember how we said the Mykerinos pyramid is a little bit offset, not in a straight line? Well, it turns out that layout on the ground is a perfect mirror of a special alignment of Earth, Venus, and Mercury. And that offset matches exactly where Mercury is when it's at its aphelion, its farthest point from the sun. The Giza Plateau isn't just a building site, it's a literal map of the sky. So if it's a map of a specific moment in time, when is that moment? Well, here's the craziest part. It hasn't happened yet. That exact alignment of the planets is set to occur in the year 3088. So you have to wonder, were the pyramids built as a giant marker for a date in our future? And, just as a little sidebar, if you trace time backwards 1/2 of a precessional cycle, that's a huge cosmic year, from 3088, you land right around 10,000 BC, the end of the last ice age, a date that just keeps popping up in these ancient mysteries.
Okay, so this brings us to the biggest problem of all. All of this data implies an absolutely staggering level of scientific knowledge. But that knowledge completely contradicts everything our history books tell us the ancient Egyptians actually knew.
So here it is, the fundamental question. Forget for a minute how they moved the giant stones. The real mystery is how in the world did they know what to build in the first place? According to what we know of history, the answer is a hard no. To calculate the volume of planets, you need telescopes and a sun-centered model of the solar system. They had neither. To measure the Earth's volume, you first have to know it's a sphere, but they believed in a flat Earth. And the math for the volume of a sphere? That wasn't even formalized until Archimedes in Greece, centuries later. And the speed of light? Come on, that's a completely modern scientific discovery. It should have been impossible, period. So where does that leave us? We're stuck with this data that seems completely impossible, but the numbers don't lie. The correlations are there. So we have to confront the sheer astronomical unlikelihood of this all being one giant cosmic coincidence. So what are the odds of all this? The three equations, the planetary alignment, what are the odds of it all happening by pure dumb luck? Well, the calculated probability is roughly 1 in 18 billion. Just let that number hang in the air for a second. To put that number into perspective, your chances of winning a major lottery are millions of times better. So at what point does coincidence become the least logical explanation? At what point do you have to start looking for another answer, no matter how wild it sounds? And that, of course, leads us to the classic, unavoidable question. If the ancient Egyptians of 2600 BC, as history understands them, couldn't possibly have had this knowledge, then who did? Who were the true architects of Giza? But maybe, just maybe, there's an even stranger question we should be asking. Given that celestial alignment, were the pyramids built not as a record of the past, but as a message for a specific date in our future? The year 3088. What if the message wasn't for them at all? What if the message was always meant for us?